Hey everyone. All right, so we left off that we've created our base template. We then took that base template, modified it, and made the pockets kind of fancy for our project. And we created the cut file so that you could cut and score all your cardstock pieces. So the next major piece of putting an album together is creating the matting templates. For your simple rectangle, squares type of matting, it may be just as fast to cut it by hand than it is to cut on your machine. But when you start getting into the pockets that we created that have decorative edges and stuff, it is much easier to have the machine cut your mats out. I actually use this, the next 2 or 3 videos is exactly how I also design my matting, because I let the machine cut everything because I like the precision. But even if you do some hand cutting, some machine cutting, you can use this system to make sure you have enough paper to test your papers out, try them out on your design, move them around, and pick what you want your finished product to look like. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and open the file that we've been working on. I should have opened it before we started. Oh, I did open it. Never mind. It's right here. And this is where we created, we're back to the file where we had, not our base file, but where we had made the changes. We had our cover cardstock pieces to cut out, and then and our chipboard pieces. Now, do you remember those black lines that we created? Those are what we're going to be using for our matting. So what I like to do, let's see if this works, is if you come on here, you can select by color, and we're going to click everything that has a black line. And we can get rid of groups, and we want everything, not just what's on the media. So you select black, and see how it picks up all those black lines? I'm going to move those off to the side. Okay? Because that's what we're going to be working with. All right, and then we're going to come in here. I'm going to delete all of this because I don't need those anymore. We've already cut all of this out of our cardstock. Okay, so these are my templates for all of my pieces. Probably would have been nice if I'd kept the letters with them. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and do it that way as well for you guys. Let's come all the way back. This is a small project, but we should probably get into the habit of keeping our letters. So let's do this a different way. I moved them off, and there's nothing wrong with that, but then I don't have my labels. So I'm just going to go ahead and reverse everything else I did here. Probably would have been easier just to reopen the file, but that's all right. Let's see what this does. Okay. So instead of selecting the black lines and isolating them, let's do it differently. Let's select, get rid of groups. I want them to pick up everything that has a red line, and let's delete those. Okay, and we want to get rid of all of our blue lines and delete those. Okay, now what we're left with is our black lines with a label. All right, and I don't need this because I'm only going to use these F's. And I don't need this because I'm going to use that. Okay, so here's my cover, and here's all my interior pieces for the book. And what we want to do is we want to set these up and create our mats as we go along. So the cover on this, and I usually just move them up here. And I don't really care about the letters so much, but you certainly can bring it up if you want. The way that this looks is we have our front cover. We then have our spine. And then we're going to have a back cover. So I'm going to duplicate that. Oops. And what I did was a copy. We've done it a million times. Command or Control C and then Command and Control F. That put a copy on top. So here I have my front cover, my spine, and my back cover. And we're going to have that as an outside. And then we're also going to have, we're going to copy the spine because when we open our book, we're going to have the inside spine, right? And all of that's going to need to be matted. Now we have the top and the bottom. So let's start on the top. When we have a top, we're going to have in the center, we're going to take one of these and I'm going to copy it because I'm going to need one for the top and one for the bottom. Okay. Let's explode out what our top's going to look like. Okay. The way our top is going to look is, sorry, I hit the button too many times. I am going to have the center of my book. And then on the right-hand side, I need a flap E. And that flap E is going to need to be open. And we're going to have two sides. We're going to have it open and we're going to have it closed. So we need two E's because there'll be two sides to it. And we are also attaching a G to that. Okay. So we will have a G that is closed on my E and also opened. So what I like to do is I'll put a G here. Oops. And I'm also going to take one of my G's. Let's do that later. All right. So we know that we have this, and then we have a G that's closed, and then a G that's opened. Okay. Now let's build on the top again. On top of this C, we have two separate pieces this time. We have the shorter flap D. Again, we're going to copy and paste it. We're going to bring that up. All right. And we have the side that's opened. And we are also going to, on this side, we are going to have one of these long pockets. And I'm just going to go ahead and pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick this pocket to put on this side. Okay. So that H is going to be placed on top of that D. I also have another E flat, set of E flaps. So instead of bringing them all the way from the bottom, I can just bring those over here. And on one of these E flaps, I need to put one of my small pockets. So I'm going to take this one. I'll go ahead and put a letter on it so everybody can follow along what I'm doing. And I'm going to put it on, you can put it on any of these E pieces, but I think I'm going to put it here when it's closed. Okay? Now we need to build the bottom of the folio. Okay, you have your centerpiece C, so let's move that up. And the bottom pretty much matches the top, where you've got the 2 flaps on the left and the 1 flap on the right. So what you can do if you want to, instead of bringing this along, we actually can take this whole thing here, copy, paste, move it down, and then we just need to change the few things out that we need to change. Like that pocket comes out, and I'm going to use this rounded pocket instead. Oops, grabbed the wrong piece. Okay. And on this side, I'm going to vary it a little bit, and I'm actually going to put my small pocket on, it can go on any of the E flaps, so I'm going to put it on the inside of this flap. And the other thing we're going to change is my small pocket here. And we're going to change this pocket out. And I'm going to put it on the inside of this D flap. So let's take that and put that up there. Okay, so now I have all my pieces kind of laid out. Okay? And I can get rid of this. I tend to do my covers last. So let's start building this up. And let's do the easy pieces first. Okay? Now there are 1,000,001 ways that you can do a mat. I'm just going to do really simple mats. We're going to do all the simple ones first, and then I'll show you a little more complicated way that I mat as well. So let's take piece H. Okay, this pocket, I'm going to take the letters off as we go because we know what the pieces are. This pocket, I want to cover the whole thing with a piece of pattern paper, and I want to have, you can have an 1/8 or a 1/16 of an inch. Some designers like to use an 1/8, some designers like to use a 1/16. You can use up to 1/4, and I'll show you how to do all three. We're going to come over here, and we're going to pick this star with the line around it, and that's our offset. Okay? I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to do an internal offset. And when you click that, see how it draws a line? It automatically is going to default to an 1/8 of an inch. That gives you an 1/8 of an inch of cardstock that will show around your buffer. Okay? And I'm probably just for speed going to leave that. But if you want it to be a 1/16 of an inch, you come in here and change it to 0.63. Okay, if I apply that, you'll notice that it moves, let me come up in here, to just a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, you also can do an internal offset, and if you want, you can make them very large and make them 1/4 of an inch. Now on a project this size, you'll see what happens. It doesn't allow you to, I don't really like 1/4 of an inch, but it also doesn't allow you to fully mat. You have these weird little pieces on here. So if you really wanted 1/4 of an inch, I would come in here and clean all of these up so that you get nice loops, and then this would all stay black and I delete all of these. But we don't want to do that. Like I said, I'm going to leave it. Most people use either an 1/8 or a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to come in this piece and I am going to do an internal offset at an 1/8 of an inch. And what this does is this gives you square corners, which is what we want, because up in here, we want to make sure those stay square. So you want to make sure you select square and then apply. Okay, and I'm going to move this out of the way because the next thing we're going to do is I want to fill this with a color so that I know that's going to be pattern paper. I usually fill mine in with white. And then I'm going to pick up that back piece and I'm going to fill it in with black. Okay? So even if I'm not cutting black cardstock, I find this is just visually very easy to see. Okay? So there's my pocket. Now let's talk about, this is going to go on top of my flap D. So I'm going to take this letter off. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to line it up on top of that letter D. All right? Doesn't have to be exact. You just pretty much want it to line up on the corners. So I'll bring my D down. All right, see how it's pretty much lined up there? Okay, so now let's create my mat for this flap. We're going to do the exact same thing. Internal offset, 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16, whatever you want. I want squares. I'm going to apply and I'm going to fill it in with white. Now, you'll notice it covered that up and that's okay. And to save pattern paper, I don't need this to go all the way down into my pocket. I really only need it to go to about there, right? Now I'm going to take this mat and I'm going to put it behind. This moves things, bring it to the front. This moves it to the back, so let's send it to the back. And we're going to take our piece D and we're going to color that in black. And we're going to send that to the back. Now I have my pocket. That's going to be a matted piece and the solid piece that goes behind here. All right. So that was pretty easy. Let's do our other pocket now that we're doing pockets. All right. So on this on the top, I put this pocket on top of my flap E. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this piece, we're going to internal offset 1/8 of an inch, make sure it's square, and I'm going to apply. I'm then going to fill that in with white, and then I'm going to fill this in with black. Okay? And that is going to go on top of this E. So let's make a mat for this E as well. We're going to internal offset, apply, fill it with white, and let's fill the outside piece black. Oops, I grabbed the wrong piece, so let's turn it back to white. Let's zoom in to see what we're doing. There we go. We pick the outside one, we turn it black. If it turns everything black, we just move it to the back. And now I have that flap, and I'll be able to fill that with my pattern paper. And we're going to move this up on top because that's where this is going to sit on my project. And you'll notice for ease of closing, this is slightly smaller because we wanted to leave a little bit of gap, and it's mostly so that this flap can sit. That's okay. You can either mat this and then put your pocket on top and leave that alone, or if you're like me, you're going to want this matting paper to line up with the width of this. So you just click on this. This matting paper right here has a width of 5 inches. See that? So let's take this piece and we're going to, let me move this down so we can open this. And we're going to change that piece and give it a width of only 5 inches. Now, you'll notice that that lines up exactly. The reason that that's happening is this pocket is sized slightly smaller because when you construct this album, you need that extra space in here for your gusseting and such. So this, when you construct it, will all work. It might look kind of funny on this. Okay, so that created that pocket. Now let's go down and do the same thing down here. Let me back up because I might have put this. No, I did it on the right one. So I have my 2 E-flaps. I have this pocket. I have my center and this flap. So I'm going to do the same thing down here. You guys should be old hats at this by now. I'm going to take this pocket. I'm going to do an internal offset. Apply it. I'm going to color it white. I'm then going to grab the outside larger piece. Sometimes you have to zoom in to get to the, if you can't get it, you can just click both and then get rid of the white. And we're going to fill that in with black. All right, now we're going to take this E piece, do the same thing. We're going to do an internal offset, apply it. And I already know that this is only 5 inches, so let's go ahead and change that while I'm here to 5. And fill that in. Grab my back side and make it black. And again, I'm doing that because I want to be able to, and you'll notice how that's going behind. That's okay. Just come up here and move it to the top, bring it to the front, and then you can set this right on top. Okay? Again, it's a personal choice. If you want to, you can make this the full width. Make this page and then put your pocket on top. That's a personal choice. I just prefer all my matting to line up. Okay, then let's come over here and I'm going to do the same internal offset. Everybody bored yet? This is just kind of how you do it. And I'm going to fill that in with white. Take my bigger outside piece. And I think I still have the smaller one. That's irritating. Yes, I do. So we'll grab the outside one and fill it in with black. Now you know what that pattern piece is going to look like. It's going to go on top of this. So let's do an internal offset on this. Apply it. Color it in white. And then grab the outside piece, zoom in, no reason to make my life difficult. Oh, come on, there we go. And color it in black. And this pocket, I want it to go, again, bring it to the front. I want it to go right here. Okay, now, 2 things that we didn't do. Let me go back and check up above. This big mat doesn't need to be that long. So I can save on pattern paper and bring it to about there. And this one doesn't need to be the full width either. I can just have it cut the paper to about there. All right. I'm not sure what I did with this envelope. Pocket. Let's go up and look. Yeah, I did move that one. I made it shorter, and I think we did not make this one shorter. So let's make it shorter. Okay, because you don't have to go all the way down. Now you won't want to make it shorter if you're going to map the page before you put the pocket on. All right, now if you just want to cover all of the other flaps with full sheets of pattern paper, you just come in here, like this flap, when it's closed, I want to go ahead and cover that with a full piece of pattern paper because I'm going to cut down pick a piece that I want of pretty pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that whole square in, for example. Okay, and fill that in with black. Ugh. I'm having the hardest time grabbing those outside squares today, aren't I? I'm still not doing it. Hold on. When I get really stuck and I can't get it to pick up the piece I want, I just select both and then deselect the one I don't want. There we go. All right. So right now, I have my white templates for all of my intricate cuts and that. Again, you can simply cut direct mats for everything, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to do it for most of them. Maybe just for ease of use, but let's go. Let me show you a few of them that I did designing with this paper. Okay, on my E-flap, for example, here, all right, logically, I think about it just like you do when you're designing. Like I wanted to put a picture here and a picture here and then block 2 pieces of pattern paper with a stripe of pattern paper here that had words going across it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my photos, okay? And all I'm doing is I'm going to create, my finished photos are going to be 4 by 4. And I'm going to set them, I'm going to set it, well, that's not going to work. Let's make my photo 3.5 and a height of 3.5. Let's see if I like that look. It's a little boxy, but that's all right. Let's put that there. And so I want to make that a photograph. I want to position an opposite photograph up here. All right. That's going to leave that strip of paper a little smaller than I want it to be. So let's make this photograph. Okay, let's make the photographs 3 by 3. And we're going to make this photograph 3 by 3. Okay. And we're just going to throw them in the corners for now. Okay. What I really centered on this piece of paper is I want to put a strip of the pattern paper in here. And I want that strip to be, we're going to figure out the exact width of that strip in a minute. So let's click on this. Okay, this is 7 7/8. Okay? And I want 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch here, and 1/8 of an inch here. If you add that up, that's 1/4, that's 1/2 inch, plus I have 2 3-inch pictures. So that's 3 plus 3 plus 1/2, that's 6.5. And I have 7.875, which means if I subtract 6.5, that means this piece is 1.375. Okay, and this is 5.625, and I want to take 1/4 off of that. So that means that this would be 5.375. Okay, so now I have my strip of pattern paper. So let's, fill that in white, because I know that's going to be pattern paper. Just for a photo placement, I'm going to just fill that in with red, just so I know that those are photos. And then I need to figure out this piece of paper that goes here. And honestly, I cheat. Here's how I do it. You can do all the math, or you can say, all right, I just draw a square in here, and I get basically 3 1/4, and I know I need to take 1/4 inch off of that, so that has to be 3, and I basically have 5 1/2, and I know I need to take 1/4 off that, so I know it has to be 2 1/4. All right, and let's fill that in with white. And then this should be, because this is the same size photograph, this will be the same size paper. So now I've designed that page. I know that I've reserved a space for 2 4-inch photos, and I'm going to do some blocking with my pattern paper. So that flap is designed. Now let's look at this flap. And I have lots of 4x6 photographs. So let's bring a photograph over here and let's make it 4x6. Okay? And I can put it here and do some paper blocking, or I can rotate it. And if I rotate it, it doesn't quite fit. I don't really think that I want to crop this photo. So I'm going to rotate it this way. And I'm going to set my photo here. And now I need to do some color blocking across this photo. So I have 7.875. I know that I have 6 inches, plus I have 375 because I have 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch here, and 1/8 of an inch here. So that leaves me 1 1/2 inches. So I'm going to just draw a box here. Whoops. Let's draw a box in here. You can draw it outside too if it's going to be difficult. We're going to draw a box. Okay, and the width of this again is 5.625, and I need to take 1/4 of an inch off of there. So this would be 5.375, and I think we said this needed to be 1.375. Let me see. We had 6. Yeah, 1. No, 1 1/2. So this needs to be 1 1/2. So you still have to do a little math, just like you did if you were hand matting. Okay? So we're going to bring that piece down, put it in place, fill it in white because that's going to be pattern paper. And we know that this is taking up 4 1/4. So I need this to be 1.375, and we know the height is 6. So we're going to come in here and draw a box. And we know that that has to be 6.1.375. Okay, and I color blocked that in. Okay, and fill that in with white. And I would just keep going, putting in my photographs where I wanted them, putting strips of paper where I wanted them. For ease of what we're doing, I am just, and you can spend hours doing all of this designing, okay? And I'm going to take all of these and I'm just going to fill them totally with pattern paper for speed. So we do an internal offset. We're going to apply that. We're going to color them in white. Then I'm going to grab the outside boxes on these. Let's just make this really easy. Let's deselect all the white. I don't want this piece at all to be included. All right, let's do these two. And I'm going to deselect the white and color black. We're going to take these, deselect the white, and color them black. And if you're asking how I'm deselecting, what I'm doing is I'm taking my cursor and selecting everything, and then I'm holding my shift key down, and if you click on the white, it deselects them. Okay? So you would go through and put your photographs and your pattern paper in here, and you can create all of these. Or you could choose to do this part by hand, and you may only want to cut these pieces. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to go ahead and fill these in as well, and we'll just do them all solid because it's just, you now know how to do it. You don't need to sit here and watch me design all of this. We're going to do an internal offset. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to make those white. We're then going to select all of those. I'm going to deselect the white and fill those in with black. And let's take these. Internal offset. We're going to make those white. And then we're going to fill the back in black. All right, so those are all of our pages. All right. And like I said, I would go through and color block all of my pages. Or I might have a piece of paper that has a beautiful cutout that I'm wanting to layer, or I may want to layer some cards, or I want to make a cutting interest. But this, just for demonstration, gives you a starting point of what you can do with your papers. You can choose to, it just allows you to visualize, and you'll understand in a couple videos exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that on how I'm going to design my cover. Okay, first thing I'm going to do in here is we colored these so that we knew they were chipboard. Let's just take that coloring out for now. We're going to fill it with nothing. All right, here's my chipboard pieces. And I've got to put an outside design. Okay? And these don't need to be exact, but let's make this about 3/8 of an inch, and I'm going to take the letters out of here because we all kind of know what these pieces are. And here's what I'm wanting to do. I am wanting to take, I have a pattern piece of paper that I want to set in here. I have a pattern, this is going to be my back, this is my front. I have a front piece I want to put on here. I'm then going to want to create a bigger piece because it's going to wrap around the spine, and then I want to create a stripe across here on the front and back to cover that seam. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, we're going to start by taking this piece. I'm going to do my same offset like I've always done before. Let's fill it with white. But I'm going to go ahead and bring this piece down because I want, well, let's look at the measurements first. It's 7 3/4. I want about 1.5 inches of my wraparound from my spine to show. So this needs to be 6 1/4 in height. Okay? And we're going to bring that down here. Again, doesn't have to be exact. This is for my visual because we know the measurements are exact. And I'm taking, I have paper that's got, I had papers that had specific things in the corner. So that's what we did. Now I need a piece that's going to do a wraparound and over my spine. Okay, if we want to get this exact, I know that I'm going to put 1/4, actually I use 3/8 of an inch. So I need 375 because that is my tape spacing. I usually leave 1/4 of an inch, but I'm going to raise this to 375 because I need that kind of spacing for my 1/4 inch space as well as the thickness of my chipboard. And yeah, that looks pretty close. So I'm visually, now I know that's pretty close. I now need to create a square from here down to that white piece. Okay? And let's go ahead and create that square. And I need it to be the same width as this paper. So this paper is 5875. So we're going to make it 5875. Okay? So that is the same width. Oh, I just don't have these lined up. Let's make this really easy. We're going to take, just visually so this is easier, we're going to grab our 3 outside boxes and we're going to align them all to the left. That allows me to then take my 2 white pieces and I can align them to the left. Now, everything's all lined up, so I can line up my red box. That'll just make everything visually look nice. Okay? And we're going to, with that, fill that in with white because that's going to be a piece of my pattern paper. Okay? Now, when I make this, I'm going to have a little seam here, and I really don't want that seam to show, and I usually do this. I'm going to create just a small strip that's going to sit on top of that. And I'm going to make that strip the same width. I want it to be the same width as everything else, and let's make it 1/4 of an inch. Okay? And I'm going to put that over that seam, and I'm going to take that piece, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it over this seam. Okay, and if you're like me, I don't like to put pattern paper right on top of pattern paper. I actually like to have a thin line of my cardstock under that. So I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to do an offset. I don't need much. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as 1/8 of an inch on each side. I want it to have square corners, and I'm going to apply it. I don't want it to overhang, so I'm going to take this back to my 5.875, apply, and now, because I didn't do it, let me zoom in. There's a lot of lines going on, but we're going to take our inside rectangle, if it'll do it. Okay, we're going to select our inside rectangle. We want to fill that in white because that's going to be pattern paper. And then I'm going to take my outside rectangle and I'm going to fill it in black. And now you can see what I'm going to have on my design is I'm going to have my spine piece that wraps around. I have my spine top and bottom, and I'm going to have my stripe across there. And I'm going to do, actually we can make this really easy. No reason to reinvent the wheel. We're going to take this and copy, paste on top, and bring it down. Okay, so now I can cut that extra piece of cardstock and that pattern paper, layer them, and when I put my book together, I'll have that to put across my seam. It gives it a little visual interest. I may also want to create a title and cut it out down here, so I'll show you what I did with that real quick. I typed text. I put on my mom's book, Sanibel Island. And then after I chose it, I went ahead and picked a font that I liked better, or that more importantly, I knew she'd like it better. I think I used Lobster. So let's pick Lobster. Not Papyrus, let's pick Lobster. There it is. Okay, let's zoom in. See how that says Sanibel Island? I really like that. I want those lines to be closer together, so let's go ahead and bring those closer together. And I want it to be more right justified. And okay, and I actually want my I and my D to touch so that this makes all one line. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually copy this. You can have a little text lesson here. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to take the word island out. And I'm doing this so that I can have more flexibility. And then on this one, I'm going to take Sanibel out. Okay, and we want to get rid of that line. All right. Now, I want my letters to all stay together. So I want to, let's go ahead and select this letter. I want to weld them. Okay, once I weld them, I can't make any more script changes. But there's my Sanibel. And let's pick up island and let's weld. Okay, now I have a few things that aren't welded together here. I'm okay leaving the dot of my I off. I like that better. But I want my D in island and my I to kind of connect like that. Okay? So that this can all cut and be placed as one piece. So now let's take all of that and weld that. Okay, now I have Sanibel Island with that I. Okay? I also want to be able to back that. So let's take this. We're going to do an offset. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 1/4 of an inch and apply. Okay? Now I'm going to cut Sanibel Island. I'm going to fill it in to be white. And I'm going to fill the back. Oh, and I need my dot to be white. Okay. And if it's really bugging you, I don't mind playing with the little pieces, but you could always move this down and weld as well. But I kind of like my little dots to be separate. And then we're going to take this piece. Whoops. We're going to take the back piece and we're going to make it black. Okay, now if I zoom out, I now am also going to be able, I'm going to group this. Well, let me ungroup it. I'm going to go ahead and move, this is why you group it. All right, then I'm going to move that down, and this is going to sit here. And I can decide if that's too big, that's too small. Let's make it this just a little smaller and bring it over here. Okay, so that's my title. And you can just sit here and play. You can, let's say as part of Sanibel Island, I want to put a seashell on top of this. So I would go into my library, I could pull a seashell up, I could add it here, fill it with cardstock, and I basically design every page of my album. So I'm going to leave you to it. It is literally just a matter of offsetting, doing your math, isolating what is photographs, what is pattern paper, and you're going to create this whole template. And once you do that, I do a file, save as, I save it to the hard drive, and I'm going to call this Mom Gift File Matting Template and save it. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to bring your pattern paper in and how we start to fill with our pattern papers.